As we conclude this unit, I want to point out some problems with the research that's currently available with Gen Ed and millennials, especially since both generations make up today's students. So, children of baby boomers believe that digital technology has had a profound impact on their personalities, including their attitudes and approach to learning. This may be true with those that have been surveyed, of course, but that's really not entirely possible. That 100% of the last two generations that we've been covering have had access to social media or digital technology. Some may even have a preference to not have social media or social networking websites, or some may even be too young to have one. As I mentioned previously, part of Gen Ed, they're not even born yet. But right now we're talking about millennials, and if we were really to take a survey of every millennial that's currently out there, some might not even have access to the technology. Actually, a lot of them don't have access to the technology, and some don't even have any social networking websites at all. So, as you can see, Don Tapscott, based on his research, um, he based his research on web surveys that were circulated on social media sites. So obviously, everyone that took these surveys, they were on social media. So if you're asking students who are on social media if it's affecting their lives, then of course they will say yes, because they are on social media. So looking at millennials, according to Howe and Strauss, they say today's teens are recasting the image of youth from downbeat and alienated to upbeat and engaged. But the problem with this book is that the research is narrow, and the survey comes from one of the richest areas in the country where most of the kids would have access to the internet and social media. They come from two-parent households, their parents have advanced degrees. So really, when you look at it, again, this is where everyone in this area, Fairfax, Virginia, they have access to social media, and it's really narrow research. So when you're doing research on millennials, you have to make sure that you take it with a grain of salt, because not everyone has access to social media or access to the internet even. You have to think about certain areas of this country even, or certain areas around the world in this age group. Digital natives, they're really an assumption that children are better at technology than adults are because they grew up with it. That's all they know. So, again, that's really an assumption that children are better with maybe an iPad or even a laptop or an iPhone than an adult is. And in the Prinsky book, he makes the assumption, and that's really a common assumption in the media, but again, there's no systematic research backing that claim up. That's unfounded assumptions about access to digital technology. But really, are children better at technology than, say, an adult is? Adults can do more complex things, can a young child pick up a computer and do advanced stuff with, say, Excel, or do something with programming as soon as they pick up, say, an iPad or a laptop? Can they figure that out really quickly as opposed to an adult? Again, that comes under the assumption because they're called digital natives. And many, that's making the assumption that many children have access to the technology. Some children may not have access to the technology and may not know how to use it. So with Generation Me, we kind of covered that earlier in the introductory slides. Jean Twinge's work regarding the narcissism, it does actually have systematic research backing it, and the level of narcissism over time with different generations, it's been steady from the 1960s actually until the millennials came around, because they actually had the access to the social media and they were able to promote themselves online. They had instant access basically with MySpace, Twitter, Facebook, all these social media websites that are out there. They can instantaneously put their lives out there within seconds. But in the readings that you read for your assignment, there's actually an article that critiques that. So again, the article, though, these students came from a research intensive university. So will the article as a survey represent every student? You really have to remember that when you read articles, you have to read closely and dig deeper. You really have to do your research and see where the data is coming from, check the backgrounds, check the city, the area. Did they include a diverse sample? A lot of the research will only include a certain area. Like a lot of the surveys will say, well, does social media impact your life? And then they will be web surveys. Well, if there are web surveys, then they will most likely be social media users. So you really have to keep that in mind. And that's really just a small sample size. They're not asking people who are not online and social media doesn't impact them. And a lot of people don't have access to the internet. A lot of people around the world, some people in this country really don't have access to a computer still, and we don't think about that. So you really have to keep that in mind, especially if you are a teacher. Some people in your classroom still might not have daily access to the internet, so they might not be on a social networking website, or might not even know how to use technology, or might not even be familiar with how to use an iPad or another mobile device. Now, Gen Edge, we really don't know too much about them. We're still only part of the way through the generation. That generation really will go through the year 2020. The readings will provide a glimpse of similarities between the millennials and Gen Edge. There are some similarities, but of course there will be some differences too. Since we're still learning and some of them are in school, we really won't get a complete grasp about this generation really until they've reached young adulthood. for the little that we do know about Gen Age, some researchers that are studying them are saying that they're polite, which is the complete opposite of millennials, because millennials have been given the term spoiled rotten, generation me, if you remember. They're being called polite, actually. um, they're also pragmatic. They're being called pragmatic because um, they were exposed to job loss and tight family budgets because of the recession that recently took place. So um, they say they would give up their dream jobs for jobs that would pay more. So this generation, I guess they're studying at least the ones that are in high school, the ones that are on the older end. They save money. They um, like to fix things, which is why they're being called pragmatic. This generation's also private. I guess that's the opposite of the millennials who had their lives out there. This generation likes to use apps that are more private, like Message Me, WeChat, and they like to be anonymous, which we know there's no such thing as being completely anonymous on the internet. Anyone can find out anything, but they use Whisper, Secret, apps that they don't really have to leave their name, but there's always a way to find out, or apps where they can just, like Snapchat, or apps where they can just speak one-on-one or in a group. Apps that are similar to that instead of Facebook or Twitter even, or if they're on Twitter, they only add a few people. Digital natives, that's just a term where they were born into technology. That's something we covered earlier. And another term that's been coined for them has been the internet generation, because they were born in the internet, and that's a term that's similar to the net generation. They've given the millennials. So that's a similarity that they have with the millennial generation. Some characteristics that we may find with Generation Edge, which some researchers are finding that they tend to spend more time on YouTube, Netflix, and social media than watching network television. They're really not afraid to try new technology. They just pick up a device and they'll just use it. They find this true with some millennials too. It seems like millennials do the same thing. But really, Gen Edge takes it to a whole new level. They'll just try new technology. They have no fear whatsoever to try it. Um, they'll do their own research. Um, if they want to find something out, they'll just go online and find out. They even spend less time indoors than millennials did, which no one thought was possible, because the millennials actually had, all the video games. That's when the internet took off. They had, millennials had Xbox and all those video games. It seems like more and more technology is taking off with Gen Edge. And they're actually saying with Gen Z, also known as Gen Edge, that they're with the amount of time that they're spending in their multitasking, I guess. They think they're multitasking. Um, they think they are, um, their attention spans are becoming less and less, I guess, with each generation. And their attention span, they have the least attention span than any previous generation. So they're really trying to encourage teachers and parents, especially teachers, to try to have some outdoor time or some educational activities with technology, and to improve on critical thinking skills, because each generation is becoming too reliant on technology. And they're actually calling it, according to the California Teachers Association, um, acquired attention deficit disorders, to describe the changes to the brain that are being induced by Gen Edge's use of technology. So I want you to think about that, especially since you are teachers, a lot of you are teachers, and how much time Gen Edge and even some of the millennials are spending with technology. But again, we're still learning a lot about them, about Gen Edge. Some of them aren't here yet. So to wrap up the unit, make sure you're being aware of the research that you're reading, because a lot of the research can be too narrowly focused. Make sure, just take a look at the characteristics and see if any of the characteristics fit your own students. And just take a look at the links, and just think about it, even debate about it, even debate it.